جعلوا الأرض كروية. احنا راح نتكلم في حدود معينة، وهو حدود العلم. إذا قلنا أن الأرض كروية، فالكرة معروفة حدودها ومعروفة قاراتها وخاص محدودة. لكن عندما نقول أن الأرض عظيمة ممتدة وحدودنا التي علمنا هي هذه القارات، لكن هل هناك غيرنا؟ نعم، هناك غيرنا في هذه الأرض، الذي يسمونه القطب الجنوبي. لا يوجد شيء اسمه قطب جنوبي، بل هو جوانب الأرض. ما بعد الجليد توجد بوابة عظيمة جدا الدول العظمى على علم بها، والبوابة تطل على أرض أخرى هي حضارات أخرى، منها يأجوج ومأجوج. وللعلم البترول اللي هو النفط الخام، كرود أويل، اللي موجود في أراضينا هو أنهار عندهم، هو بالنسبة لهم أنهار تجري يدخل في تحت الأرض وفي باطن الأرض حتى يصل إلى أراضينا. ليس البترول هي بقايا حيوانات أو عظام أو ديناصورات من هالخرافات اللي الناس مصدقتها، كلها بقايا نباتات قديمة جدا. لا، البترول أنهار في أرضهم تجري حتى تدخل في باطن الأرض إلى أرضنا. واضح؟ لماذا جعلوا الأرض كروية؟ احنا راح نتكلم في حدود معينة، وهو حدود العلم. إذا قلنا أن الأرض كروية، فالكرة معروفة حدودها ومعروفة قاراتها وخاص محدودة. لكن عندما نقول أن الأرض عظيمة ممتدة وحدودنا التي علمنا هي هذه القارات، لكن هل هناك غيرنا؟ نعم، هناك غيرنا في هذه الأرض، الذي يسمونه القطب الجنوبي. لا يوجد شيء اسمه قطب جنوبي، بل هو جوانب الأرض. ما بعد الجليد توجد بوابة عظيمة جدا الدول العظمى على علم بها، والبوابة تطل على أرض أخرى هي حضارات أخرى، منها يأجوج ومأجوج. وللعلم البترول اللي هو النفط الخام، كرود أويل، اللي موجود في أراضينا هو أنهار عندهم، هو بالنسبة لهم أنهار تجري يدخل في تحت الأرض وفي باطن الأرض حتى يصل إلى أراضينا. ليس البترول هي بقايا حيوانات أو عظام أو ديناصورات من هالخرافات اللي الناس مصدقتها، كلها بقايا نباتات قديمة جدا. لا، البترول أنهار في أرضهم تجري حتى تدخل في باطن الأرض إلى أرضنا. واضح؟
You mentioned in one of your last talks that petroleum wasn't what we thought it was, that it wasn't a fossil fuel, that it didn't come from fossil animal.
Yeah.
Is it just a mineral? Is it a mineral like any other mineral? Is that how it what would you say? How did it? What's the origin of
You see,
petroleum?
when they first found petroleum, because they were beginning to make motors and needed on axles or wheels on railroad trains and all that sort of thing, and remember trains started in the beginning of the 19th century, then oil went from just a lubricant to a fuel, and it made it valuable. And Rockefeller happened to be the smartest man in the business at the time, but he made most of his money, or much of it, off the transport of the petroleum as well as selling it. But one thing they realized was, because oil is putting a price on oil is like putting a price on a pail of water. You know, no initial cost. It's in the ground, and in those days they were, some of it almost what you'd call surface mining the oil. They didn't go down deep. So in order to get the price up, they hit on the idea that they would have to make it appear to be scarce. That boy, after we take the next few barrels out, we're probably going to have to close as well. You know, that kind of thing. Well, a very fortuitous event. In 1892, there was a convention in Geneva of scientists to determine what organic substances are. Well, the definition of organic is a substance with hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. And so it's usually a living substance, a tree. You analyze a dead tree, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, and grass, and so on, living things. Animals, we are hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. So at this Geneva Convention, Rockefeller took advantage of sending some scientists over who said, oil, petroleum, is hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Therefore, it must be derived from the spoiling, the rotting of formerly living matter. And playing the game properly, when this scientific convention was over, they defined oil as the residue from formerly living matter. Well, that makes it a fossil fuel. I don't know why they decided to use the word fossil, but it says formerly living matter, it's fossil. Well, of course, today, and another thing we should know is that there has never been a fossil, a real fossil, found below 16,000 feet. And you can't argue at 16,000 as a level line because someplace the ground sinks and so on. But 16 is what the scientists say, 16,000. We mine oil, or we drill for oil, at 30,000, 33,000, 28,000 every day of the week. So right there we rule it out that it isn't fossil fuel. It's called fossil fuel for the minds of the public to feel that it is an asset that is running out, being depleted. We talk about depletion allowance, which is a lot of, you know. And actually, if you know the world's oil supply, you know that it is not going to run out for an awfully long time. It is the second most prevalent liquid on Earth. And we haven't begun to... Well, with all that background, you see, the people in charge of the petroleum business, for perfectly reasonable business things, like any other man in the business, wants to keep his price as high as he can get away with. And the way to do is just say, well, there's no more. The last barrel is going to cost $1,000, and then it's all done. And they preach that stuff. What bothers me is that in geology books, it's in there. The geologists say it's a fossil fuel. Somehow they've been bought. I mean, I went to a 4-year federal staff energy seminar run by the government of the United States during the so-called energy crisis. I was the participant that represented the railroad industry. The airline industry was there. Every AA, administrative assistant of senators and congressmen, was there. The CIA was there, the Defense Department was there, the State Department was there. Sometimes sitting right in front of me in the row would be Henry Kissinger with his friend, the head of Department of Defense. That's too bad, I can't put the names with them. But anyway, people like that, top men in the government, sitting there listening to the Federal Staff Energy Seminar. Well, what this was doing is for 4 years, they were teaching a propaganda line to the leading people in this country, and therefore to the leading people in the world, when you include the Schlesingers, Kissinger and Schlesinger, among others. And the object of it was, as Kissinger used in his own terms when it was time for him to speak, to create a world price for oil. In other words, not 30 cents a gallon here and 90 cents a gallon there, but let's get a world price. That's their goal, and they're trying to do that for wheat and everything else. We don't realize what the controls are, whether it's oil or some of these other things. Almost everything today is being categorized at the highest price they can possibly make it go. And so calling petroleum a fossil fuel is the basis for this system with respect to petroleum. And I don't know if the name Arthur Kantrowitz rings any bell. Arthur Kantrowitz is the head of the Kantrowitz Labs set up by the Avco company near Boston, scientific laboratories. And a great man in the scientific world. And Kantrowitz and I were sitting at a table at this seminar once, and the table happened to be all young college grad, PhD geologists. And so just to get a conversation started, I turned to Kantrowitz and I said, Arthur, what do you think about this foolishness of these speakers talking about fossil fuel? And it was kind of put up. He started laughing. He said, you know, that gets me. He says, I don't have a geology degree, but he had 1,000 other degrees. And he said, I don't understand. He said, you'd think that these heads, these other fellows at the table, we did it on purpose, start listening, you know. And he asked, he said, are you gentlemen? He says, you're here at the meeting. Are you gentlemen by any chance geologists? And one fellow, yes, I am. And the other, yeah. He said, well, why don't you tell me? He said, why is oil? You know, and he went on like that. We brought the house down because nobody could argue with Kantrowitz. He like Einstein. People aren't going to. And he told him right there. He said, just drop it. But it's in all the books, in all the papers. But it started from that strange meeting in 1892, a scientific convention. I have a big, thick scientific encyclopedia put out by the Die Van Oosteren Company that's about 15 years old now. But it has the whole story of the conference. It doesn't have the Rockefeller part, but it has the whole story of how they straightened out organic chemicals and how it was all figured. And they've got petroleum right in there.
Amazing. Amazing. So
These aren't accidental things, you see. There's a dollar sign behind almost everything.
I asked ChatGPT if No Man's Sky's flight dynamics were based on a spherical Earth model, and it said yes. At the end of this video, 7 Clubs describes how he plays the game, and if he flies straight and level over the Earth, he will gain altitude. And then I compare this to what actual pilots say when they fly over the Earth.
Was No Man's Sky flight mechanics built assuming a globe Earth?
Yes, the flight gameplay in No Man's Sky is indeed based on the assumption that planets are spherical, or at least, they follow a model that behaves like a sphere. In the game, planets are represented as large, round objects, and the flight mechanics are designed around this spherical model to create a sense of realistic planetary exploration. Here's how the spherical model impacts the gameplay. Planetary curvature. When flying in No Man's Sky, players can see the curvature of planets in the distance, especially when flying at high altitudes. This suggests that the game assumes a spherical planet shape, and the flight mechanics are designed to allow you to navigate this curved environment seamlessly.
This game called No Man's Sky prides itself on its physics and its flight dynamics. So I'm over the water. I set my horizon and flew perfectly straight and level over this spherical planet. Now let's see if I increase in altitude. Let's see if I have to dip my nose down to stay level with the spherical planet. I'm flying straight, by the way. This is a time-lapse video, and I'm already in the clouds. This took a minute, but flying straight and level over a spherical surface will increase your altitude, just so you know. And now, already, I'm in the stars. So I need to dip my nose down and take a look at the planet that I just flew off of and try to get back down, level, and fly level. But what's it going to take? Well, on a spherical planet, if you're flying level and fast, you're going to have to adjust for that curvature of the spherical planet that you're flying over.
Do you adjust nose down around the globe every minute when you fly at 500 miles per hour?
No.
Welcome to Flat Earth. How often do you have to adjust for the curvature of the Earth?
You don't have to adjust.
You maintain the same altitude around the globe. Is this line curved?
The line curves because we're taking into consideration the curvature of the Earth.
We
do not need to nose down at all.
Does the aircraft ever need to dip its nose down to account for curvature?
No.
So there you have it. If the Earth were indeed spherical, you would have to adjust for the curvature of the Earth. Welcome to Flat Earth. If you're flying a plane perfectly straight and level, you're saying you never dip the nose down. Why would you not end up in space?
Because you follow the red line. You're flying level, the same elevation above the ground.
Right, so then the plane's nose dips down.
Not relative to the ground, no.
So then you fly up in space.
I just realized a proof of the firmament that's mind-blowingly simple. I can't believe I never thought of this. I just got a $2 Starfinder from Hobby Lobby. The pin is Polaris, and you just move it around based on the month and the time to find what stars are in the sky. This literally proves that it's the sky that moves and not us. They proved it in Aries failure and a bunch of other experiments, but this is so simple. Why does nobody talk about this? Not only does this prove the firmament, it also proves a flat biblical earth. Also, I haven't listened to music in forever, but now that I have this in my hand, I'm like, the wheel in the sky keeps on turning.
Today we're going to talk about eclipses. First, let's talk about the solar eclipse. According to the heliocentric model, a solar eclipse happens when the moon is between the Earth and the sun. The shadow from a solar eclipse is about 90 miles in diameter. They say the moon is 2,160 miles in diameter. It's impossible for an object to cast a shadow that's smaller than itself. We don't see the moon approaching the sun or leaving the sun. If the moon was a solid object, we would see a silhouette. Also, it pauses for a while. The last eclipse I watched, it was about 4.5 minutes. So is gravity just taking a break and pausing everything? Praise gravity. That stuff does everything. Now for the lunar eclipse. There's a thing called a Selenelion eclipse, or an impossible eclipse, where the moon and the sun are both above the horizon. So if the moon and the sun are both visible above the horizon, how's the Earth casting its shadow on the moon? A red, orange, and purple shadow at that. I've never seen shadows that are red, orange, and purple. I don't know about you. Also, the shadow goes the wrong way. Another thing is, if you make a shadow on a sphere, using a sphere, we get what's called a S-wave or a sine wave shadow. That's not what we observe in reality. A couple more things I want to add. The moon emits more gamma rays than the sun. The moonlight is measured colder than in the shade. Also, there's this thing called the Coleridge effect, where we observe stars through the moon. It's called an occultation, or when a star or planet occults the moon and you can see it between the horns. There's a lot of flags in the Middle East that depict this, the star inside of the moon. There's zero proof for the globe, only a belief system, only a blind faith. RIP globe, the globe is unalived, so I'd like to ask everyone to join me and take a moment of silence for the globe. Rest in pieces.
We've all accepted the official story, a sun that's billions of miles away and a moon that reflects its light. But what if that story is incomplete? According to many ancient texts, including the Bible, the sun and the moon are not distant orbs floating in some kind of vacuum, but they are actually local and contained within the firmament. Maybe positioned much closer than we think, held in rotation by a toroidal field. This is depicted in symbolism from the Freemasons, the sun and moon rotating within the firmament. It's an interesting image. This one shows it rotating over the flat plane within the firmament. But here's some actual pictures of the sun and the moon over the flat plane. Here's another interesting one I found. This one depicts the sun and the moon within the firmament and the stars, the heavens. Here's the earth, the underworld, pillars of the earth, and the firmament containing it all, with the heaven of heavens being above. All seems to be held in place by the force of electromagnetism. Here's another image depicting the sun and the moon within the firmament. The stars are lights in the firmament. Then we got Polaris, that north star that's always in the same position with all the other stars swirling around it, and the throne of God above Polaris. Look at that. Another interesting model viewpoint from above. You imagine the firmament, the sun and moon contained within, rotating over the flat earth. Even gets more interesting when you go outside of our ice ring. There are actually more suns and more moons. There's multiple ice rings, it looks like. Kind of beautiful to think of some local lights versus billions and billions of miles away. How could we even see something that far? It gets more interesting when you consider the moon being its own luminary rather than a reflection of the sun. And moonlight is actually colder than sunlight. Very interesting. This perspective doesn't deny God's glory. It magnifies it, reminding us that we live under a carefully designed canopy and not some cosmic accident. Questioning official narratives isn't about stirring trouble. It's about seeking deeper truth. Just as Jesus Christ questioned empty traditions, we too can re-examine what we have been taught.
Help me understand this. How come every time a flat earther brings up the Chicago skyline to prove that you can simply see too far for the Earth to be 25,000 miles in circumference, the argument is always that it's atmospheric distortion, or it's a mirage, or there's all kinds of explanations. But then you'll use this picture of this causeway as proof of the curve. You can very easily curve this jack handle stand with a little bit of atmospheric distortion. So which is it? Is the picture of the Chicago skyline debunked? Or is the picture of the causeway debunked? Is it a mirage or is it not? We have to apply the atmospheric distortion to both images if we're going to use this as any kind of supporting image.
Do you want to know something crazy? Well, even if you don't, I'm just going to tell you anyway. So the pyramids of Giza are perfectly aligned with Orion's belt. I'm talking to the last little degree. The geometry of these buildings are absolutely insane. And did you know that they are based off of a flat Earth model? Because if the globe is spinning in 5 different directions and zooming through outer space, it's zipping around the sun, our Earth is zipping around the sun, and then our solar system is zipping around the galaxy, and then the galaxy is zooming through space, all at incomprehensible speeds. Is there any possible way that we would have the same exact 12 star constellations over and over and over, year after year after year? How could we get perfect star trails around Polaris? And how could the Egyptians possibly perfectly align these pyramids with the belt of Orion? Even thousands of years later, it is still perfectly aligned. The only possible explanation is that the Earth could possibly be flat and stationary, and not some giant globe in outer space. But the Earth is a globe, and I made all of this up, and this video was purely for satire purposes only. Entertainment, yeah buddy.
2 Peter 3:5 says, "For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of Yahuwah the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water." This is what they are willingly ignorant of, the firmament, also known as heaven. You see, the whole world is ignoring the fact that we live under this. And Christians are ignoring the fact that the kingdom of heaven is coming to the earth. But did y'all ever notice that the firmament was not seen as good in Genesis chapter 1?
See, on the first day, Yahuwah saw the light and it was good.
On the third day, it says that Yahuwah saw that it was good. On the fourth day, Yahuwah saw that it was good. On the fifth day, Yahuwah saw that it was good. On the sixth day, Yahuwah saw that it was good. And then after the creation of man, it was very good. But when it came to the second day, that word is nowhere to be found. And it's probably because Revelation 6:14 says that heaven will be rolled up like a scroll.
Space is in the ocean, and the ocean is biblically terrifying. No one can change my mind. I don't know how many times I gotta tell y'all that all the Earth's secrets are hidden in plain sight, like in movies. I'm about to show you guys a clip from the movie Venom: The Last Dance that has convinced me that space is in the ocean.
Why were they running?
Because there is a dark, cold sea around this universe.
What is it?
Y'all can't tell me. You cannot tell me now that there is not a firmament out there. They're literally telling us in movies that there is water all around the universe, which is clearly referencing the firmament, as above, so below, whatever you want to call it. There is water above our sky. That's why spacesuits and water suits look so similar. That's why astronauts train in water before going to quote unquote space. That's why when a rocket launches and you see it going through the sky, it looks like it's going through water. If you mention this to people, they will literally laugh in your face and tell you you're crazy. But just know, I see you. Like, are we even going to talk about the fact that only 5% of the ocean is discovered, and how places like the Bermuda Triangle, which is said to have portals into other dimensions because things disappear without a trace, doesn't even come close to the portals at the bottom of the ocean? Why else would the Bible say that in the new earth there will be no sea? And in Genesis, when God was creating the earth, it said that darkness dwelled over the water. Darkness as in the devil? Could it be? Or why when those demons were cast into the pigs, they immediately went to the water? Have y'all ever heard about Point Nemo? It's basically the point in the ocean that is the farthest from land possible. And virtually no marine life can sustain itself within this area of the ocean. It is also said to be where the government drops off space junk that they're not using, like rocket parts, satellites, astronaut equipment. But if we've established that space is actually in the ocean and the moon and the stars are within the firmament, what are they really dumping in that part of the ocean? Could it be something that they don't want us to know? I mean, just a second ago, Congress literally said that they know that there is a presence in the ocean.
So guys, I just have a couple of questions, so hopefully you guys can help me answer some of these. But before we get started, TikTok, all I'm doing is asking questions. Anyways, if the International Space Station is in space and space is empty, please, someone explain this to me. NASA alarmed that astronaut spacesuits keep filling up with water. Like, a European Space Agency astronaut was wrapping up a 7-hour-long spacewalk outside the International Space Station when he noticed water leaking into his helmet. Now again, all I'm doing is asking questions. Could it be that they're filming an underwater pool with a blue screen or green screen? Like, am I the only one that sees the problem here? Or could it be that they hold a replica of the ISS in their neutral buoyancy lab in Houston, Texas? Yes, this pool holds a replica of the International Space Station. Also, found this a little weird. They work on the outside of the space station like it's real. Is it though? Also, one more question before I go. The average bullet travels at 1,700 miles per hour. The ISS travels 10 times faster at 17,500 miles per hour. Like, how do we get on and off that thing? Guys, I need some help answering some of these questions, so y'all drop them in the comments. Don't forget to like, follow me, and share this. And like always, God bless.
The Flat Earth map dates back over 1,000 years. This map is credited to being created by a Persian astronomer. His name was Al-Biruni, and he lived between 973 AD to 1048 AD. It's the official map of the United Nations and also the United States Geological Survey. It used to be present in many places before the creation of NASA and the Antarctic Treaty in 1959. Here you see it with Admiral Byrd. This map has been restored by Dmitry from Russia with suggestions of mine, Eddie Alenkar. Known by my YouTube channel Flat Earth Banjo, I asked Dmitry to include the Bermuda Triangle and Point Nemo, a place deep in the Pacific where NASA buries rockets. Then Robert Tozzi, a professional mapmaker, came along and enhanced the map even more. There are many people now selling this map online, but if you could order it from my online store, I would greatly appreciate it. Visit my online store now and order one of the items. I humbly thank you.
What if I told you the ocean was the real outer space? A couple years ago, an independent researcher named Tyler Schmerkenheiser designed and engineered a one-of-one submarine with an adaptive hyperalloy composite hull to prove it. Guy was obsessed, believed the concept of the ocean floor itself was a lie, stuck a camera on the front of the submarine, and set off into the unexplored depths of the Mariana Trench. And Buddy, the species he captured on these videos, were things that have yet to be explained to this day. But instead of finding the seafloor, he discovered what he described as an abyssal vortex, a swirling black whirlpool that no previous expedition had ever encountered. Said that by the time he'd gotten through it, he rose up to lands that he'd never seen before in his life. Saw these strange human-like beings standing up on the shore. It was like this upside-down world, accessible through vortex canals in the depths of the water.
There it is. We can clearly see the Rogers Center from 30 miles away, and the Rogers Center is only 282 feet tall.
Time. Yet only 70 or more years ago, about 35 years ago, our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.